Hey, Tom, welcome to the Interrupted Podcast, brother. I appreciate you taking the time today.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your day of searching out bandits and talking to me.
Hey, absolutely. No, it's great to be able to carve out conversations. Myself, I'm more of an introvert, so when I'm going through a day contacting all those people, it's draining. But stuff like this, it's more conversations that I look forward to, and where we can dive
Yep.
into something, whether it's somebody new that I get to meet and hear about your story, or whether it's a good friend. It's always energizing to have conversations like this, even though we're a little farther apart using Zoom.
Yep. Not
So
too far apart. Not
no,
really.
it's all good. Yeah, man. Before we get into your story and everything you've accomplished, and just wherever this conversation goes today, I believe it's going to be great benefit to the audience out there, people that are tuning in, and the little bit I know about you is just really caused me to think quite a bit in the books, particularly your latest book, and to be able to get into some of that. Prior to that, I'd like to ask, with all you've accomplished and everything going on in your life, what are you learning right now? Like, what has your attention
Hmm.
that you're focused on? I'd love to hear that because of your accomplishments and how it seems to be wired that comes out in your book. I'm just curious, what has you captivated right now?
In spite of, not because of, in spite of my accomplishments, I'm the older I get, and I turned 53 here on June 1st,
Oh,
and I
all
don't think
right.
that's old, but it makes me take a step back and delay what I think to be true to what I see to be true. And what I see to be true is people too complex. Like we've made easy things complex. And so I'm really enamored with making things very simple.
Hmm.
And the SEAL team's things were very simple. You wouldn't think about that from a distance, but combat is a very simple environment. And that's the job of a SEAL, is to keep things simple. And I see very complex, unattainable, difficult chores in everybody's day to day life that it's actually discouraging to see how complex people have made very simple things.
Does the does the complexity come out of our overthinking things? Like, is a lot of that manufactured from us? Is the world as we perceive it actually pretty simple? Is it our own humanity that makes it worse?
Boy, I don't think it's a matter of a metric of humanity. I think it's a metric of the human brain believes everything that it sees and is told. Like the five senses are only fact finders.
Hmm.
And then when you're a caveman, facts are really important.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then we've evolved away from those facts being relevant. And now, whatever we're told, we believe, we don't challenge, and we assume is true. So that makes things very complex when they're not true. When there's an agenda, when there's an ego involved, when there's
Yeah.
choices to be made, and the facts are not black and white, it makes things so complex that I look at the generation of our kids, and I'm like, "Ooh, it's going to be hard because the facts aren't real. Because social media is not factual."
Mm.
And I didn't grow up in the world of social media, so the world now is encumbered with, it sees things and it believes it to be true, and it's not.
Hmm.
So that makes things very complicated. So it's emotion and the fact that we never get told to challenge everything that we witness and experience.
Yeah. Do you think that challenge needs to come out by like verbally confronting things, or do you think the better way, a lot of times where this kind of thought is coming out of, is a lot of times when I hear the word we don't challenge it, a lot of times that means like engage in conflict or confrontation, but I imagine there's a level of that needs to be just our own intellect to ask deeper questions about what we're being exposed to, what our senses are telling us. Is that kind of more, I guess there's probably two realms of actually physically and verbally confronting something if it's a human, but also first asking the question on our how we understand the world, like our worldview.
Well, therein lies the $1 million answer. Debate doesn't create fact.
Hmm.
The fact that you and I can debate on an irrelevant topic for hours didn't create it to be more relevant. So keep your mouth shut for a while and test. And what was a beautiful thing growing up in the SEAL teams is you facts fly out the window. You have to actually prove it, or you have to prove that you can do it. You can't talk your way into it. You have to go do 1,000 push-ups. You have to go sit in cold water and experience your soul leaving your body. Like, you have to do those things. And so what you find as somebody who has proven and continues to prove is that that's the way to live. So if you tell me something, I don't take it as fact. I go, okay, let's not debate if it's right or wrong. Let me go test it through the mechanism of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is water good to drink? We don't even know anymore because we're inundated with, you can't have too much water, but you can't have milk, but you should have this concoction over here. And then athletic greens and simple green and all the other stuff. Like, gosh, I don't even know what's good anymore because they're all perfect. But so we don't test anything. And as a detective, if it doesn't prove itself out, not in your thought, like what you wanted it to be, it's got to prove itself out. Does that shell casing fit into that gun? It looks like it does. Perhaps it does not. You know what I mean? And so I'm a big proponent of being a fact finder. And don't open your mouth to debate something until you have your inherent fact. And then it usually isn't a debate. You just walk away from somebody who's adamant about their point of view. You just, I'm not interested because I know that car doesn't drive. I'm not going to debate you about it,
But then it feels like we're wrong if we concede that. I think. Do you
I'll
think
be
that's
wrong every day of the week?
Yeah, that's kind of my point. I think that's the ego. Maybe is if I have to just walk away, that means they win in my mind. I think that's a fallacy, but that's how it feels, and so the emotional response to that stuff, I think, is what becomes so challenging, even to me, because it's how do I keep those emotions in check in that moment of confronting the complex.
Well, you didn't ask this, but I've spent the past 8 years teaching leaders and helping businesses build leadership teams. And you find out a lot about what really makes things effective. And one of the key parts of being effective as a human being past the age of 5 is understanding your emotional state of being is not very effective. Like, we are emotional morons, like we're midgets, because nobody gets any experience of where does happiness come from? What's the effect of it? What's joy? What's sadness? What's anger? Are they useful? So we're so responsive that we don't see our response. And somebody who is very responsive and doesn't notice it, that's called ego. Like, they're feeding an emotional response that they don't need to be feeding. And so what I find out about leadership teams is if you teach people emotional intelligence, money flows like water. But decisions are based on emotional reaction. They're not based on data anymore. Like, people have emotional reactions to things. In the SEAL teams, it was all based on data. Yes, no equations. Yes, no equations. And it makes you very lethal when you cannot react emotionally to everything or to anything. Not that you're you kind of become a social or a sociopath when you don't have emotional reaction, but you don't have to have that. And it's a lost art in the world.
Right on. That makes me think. So how do we help people understand how emotion can play a positive role? Like, even when someone says, well, I'm passionate about that, it really drives me. And so where does that kind of indwelling of passion towards maybe it's a career field, maybe it's to a family, maybe it's to a conversation, maybe it's to a social movement that we see everywhere. How can I can see a lot of negative how passion can drive people to make poor decisions, but where does that come into play if that makes some sense what I'm dancing around?
Uh, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of sales pitches out there that know your why is an emotional appeal.
Okay.
So it makes you always wake up and find an emotion to pursue during that day. Gosh, my why, my passion, what really drives me. And then the reality hits you in the face. And like marriage, it was really like it's not nothing wrong with marriage. Like if you don't have a good marriage, you're stuffed as a man, which is a whole different conversation. But so if you base the success of anything on how passionate you are or how emotionally responsive that you can feed into it, on Tuesday, you're done. If you're married on Saturday, by Tuesday, you're ready to get divorced because you're tired of her or she's tired of you and
Mhm.
the passion's gone, or you see something that you haven't seen yet. Like work, there's not passion in work every day.
Yeah.
But what's missing is like you have to be immaculate with what comes out of your mouth. So be really clear on what you say and that what you do is what you said you would do. Passion is spice.
Mm.
Like if you either drink dark coffee or you put passion in it called milk and sugar, it just changes the flavor, but the substance is like the honor of saying something. I'm going to go run 100 miles. Then go run 100 miles. Don't run 98. Don't run 50. Don't come back unless you die or you complete it. And that's a whole different lifestyle. And I'm really enamored with discovering how to give people that lifestyle.
Mm.
Say what you're going to do and then do that, as opposed to know why you're going to do it. Because on Tuesday, why doesn't matter anymore. Like what you're pursuing criminals, it's not fun. And then sometimes it's electric and fun and exciting. And then you're like, oh man, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right. Yeah.
But you
No,
still do it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Where how do we manage um or I guess the better way to look at this would be, is it a common thread for everyone that basically chooses to stop being disciplined towards whatever their goal or whatever they would achieve? Do you see just a simple piece to that? Or is it more complex based on personalities and character? And is it just different for every person when we fail at 98 miles or whatever, fill in the blank of the achievement?
Well, the word discipline, humans are very disciplined. Every human has more discipline than it takes to do anything in the world, except that they bounce between disciplines. It's really hard to gain fat. It's exceptionally hard to get fat. It takes more discipline to put on weight than it does to take it off. If you were to ask people that understand that, it's very hard for somebody who's like naturally a 200 pounder to be 300 pounds. That takes commitment at a level that I don't have that. So we are inherently very disciplined, but Monday we have a commitment. Tuesday's another wholly different 180 degrees out, and we stick with it. So it is driven by what we were talking about before, not to convolute it all.
Mm-hmm.
Humans have a hard time getting out of their emotional response. And so on Monday, I was excited and happy and I felt good. So I went to work and I found criminals. On Tuesday, my wife yelled at me and I don't really want to go to work and I missed something at work. But the discipline in the brain was I'm trying to solve something, but we as humans have to be very poignant. Today, I'm committed to doing like one thing. I'm going to work out in the morning. If you do that, you will then perpetuate the next committed effort. So we've made it so complicated to exist on the planet that we don't get up and whether you're a proponent or not, We don't get up and pray or meditate.
Mhm.
There's 90% of the people you meet get up and then pee and then go to work or have coffee along the way. So they miss something essential. And people don't work out in the morning. There ain't nothing more important than your body, and nobody pays attention to it. And the people that we're with, we don't check in with them before we go execute on our day. So those are three very, very important things that we don't, as humans, execute on because we isolate ourselves emotionally from that. And that's what I found to do with a lot of people is just let's get back to simple shit really quick.
Yeah.
Oh man, does it make a difference?
Yeah.
Like you really can find problems in every business, like even yours. You'll find a solution if you're on point.
Mm.
If you're not on point and your wife's and your kids are upset and you're tired and lethargic, you can't do your job that well.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, let's get back to simple stuff and do it often, and don't worry about the manifestations of the world. It's raining outside. Who cares? It's cold outside. There's a COVID shutdown. Who cares? Adjust and do work.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking you're even take your high performing, motivated person that's experienced success, whether it's financially, having successful marriage, success, anything. I believe maybe there's even we make our goals and what we're trying to pursue too complex as well, because I feel
Very
like
complex. Yep.
I feel like sometimes it's like, hey, I want to accomplish so much that I have almost too many goals that I'm almost setting myself up to failure because I can't stay disciplined in this area, because then I focus here and maybe that's where even the emotional side is like, I believe this is going to give me the best bang for my buck, and then I neglect this other thing where if we were just being more simple, what do we really want to accomplish, and try and get that equation out there, which I feel like for me a lot of times that's the hardest thing. In the next month, what is the most important thing that is going to I don't know, move the needle for where I believe I need to be as we pursue meaning with our life and pursue passing on a strong legacy and all these really good things, but prioritizing them becomes really difficult.
Boy, there another beautiful $1 million question. There are 5 goals in life. And I say that because in the past 32 years of hearing these questions and then being a part of some interesting groups that pursue the answer, 5 goals: a health goal, a business goal, or you're in the business of being a detective, that's your business. And those, you could probably have multiple goals, but categorically there are 5 goals. A goal for yourself in health that you pursue daily, a business goal that you pursue daily. It may not actuate that month. It may be a quarter. It may be 5 years from now. A relational goal that you have with your kids or your wife or your husband. An intellectual goal, like you have to learn Spanish because you're going to go into the Mexican border, whatever. So something that you're learning that's goal-centered. And a spiritual goal. So there's 5 categorical goals that are not negotiable, and you have to have them, and they're not in priority over another. Every day they have to be pursued and measured against the day before and the next day. And it doesn't take a lot of time, but you can't, what I've seen in life is people throw out 4 for 1. Like athletes can't find $1 in a bank. If you go to the Olympic Training Center, the number 1 Olympian doesn't know where money comes from because they're solely in the business of athletics. So they've isolated the other 4 areas of their life at the cost of those areas. So you look at that swimmer who won all those Olympic golds. I can't remember his name.
Michael Phelps.
Yeah, Michael Phelps.
Yeah.
So now he's out and he never pursued the other 4 areas of his life to any measurable effect. Now he's trying to discover them. Now he's lost swimming. So he's now back to what we were when we were 12 years old. Who am I? What am I going to do? What am I capable of doing? So every day, what I found, it's a 6 hour day. Like pursue a day of 6 hours where you pursue those 5 areas of life by doing activity in those areas.
Mm.
And I that sounds complicated, but it's so basic. And then we've put like 500 people through training to date. And oh my God, people make it too complicated. Work out every day for an hour.
Yeah. But what do I do? What routine do I do? How do I approach this exercise?
Doesn't matter relative to your goal. So if your goal is a running goal, you run or you do a workout that's helping you run. If you're a cyclist, you cycle or do a workout helping that you be a cyclist.
Right.
Simple. An hour of movement, 20 minutes of stretching, and drink 10 glasses of water a day. If you do that, you are competitive at a level that you'll never be in your life ever. But what I've seen of 500 plus people is you got to create a context for them to do it. And you got to coach them through doing those simple things. Mm-hmm. And in business, 3 simple things as well. Fight to be in front of somebody new for an hour a day. Or I'm assuming this detective wise, you got to find one new person to interview every day.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Don't just interview the old people over and over again. Like in business, so it's offense, defense, and strategic. One new person a day, one existing client a day that you're calling and checking in with, and then think about where this is going to pursue in the future. Are all these things creating a future? And let yourself think about that. That's a 3-hour wealth day. And it takes most people 90 days to create that. And once they do that, their businesses grow 100% of the time. Because every skill of those 3 skill sets create muscular activity. Like it sucks to get on the phone and hear a no. So what? Get on the phone. Hey, Jim, no. Okay. I got on the phone. I stretched that muscle out. I got it to get bigger. And you know how interviews go. Oh my God. Nobody wants to talk to you guys anyway.
No, that's true.
Like you guys are inherent salespeople.
Well, and along that same vein, a lot of times it's, when you do want to talk to someone and you try and, a lot of times when a conversation fails, it's because prior to that conversation, I already told myself how that conversation is going to end based on what I believe about that person. And I am very shocked, and I try and tell this to people a lot, how many times I did not expect the conversation to go the direction it went. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but normally my expectation, it's rare that the conversation goes where I thought it would prior to that conversation.
Yeah, 100% of the time. 100%. People are not who we think they are. For sure.
Yes, and we are not who people think we are. And a lot of times we get ourselves in postures where we feel like we have to defend who we are rather than just being who we are. And I know that may get too existential, I guess, but there's it's like, understand, like, this is what I stand for. This is my beliefs. What we say to our audience, truth, discipline, and integrity. And it's, what are those things? What do you believe and what are you focused on? And then start executing upon those. And, that's very kind of broad in general. It's not necessarily measurable or boiled down to what I wrote down. But with all that said, it's like, if we can understand that, all of a sudden how I'm perceived by others seems far less important because I can take a stand for something.
Mm-hmm. And when people are listening to you ask them questions, they're judging and evaluating you as well. And then you show up differently than what they thought.
Yeah. And
like
sometimes
crazy, bad people in blue. Can you believe that's being pitched across the world?
No.
Oh, sorry. I had to say something about that.
No, I'm with you. But there's an element too that of somebody you look up to or believe you're going to look up to or respect. You don't want to let them down. I want to show up my best rather than just show up with who I am. And that's, I guess, where that authenticity, man, I'm dancing around some big topics here. Sorry about that. But
I love it.
You're really kind of pushing where my mind was going. Even I haven't even asked you my first question I thought we were going to ask you. So, but yeah. So let me do this. Let me ask you, at what point did this simplicity conversation arise in you? As a young man, was that there based on your family of origin and what you looked up to and saw? Or how did this cultivate, within your life?
Well, we're not a summation of our past. Like a lot of people ask that, how were you raised? And you never, our youth doesn't create us. Like there's more quantum leaps than there are, you know, gradual steps that make us this person at 53 or however old people are.
Hmm.
Uh, how I think where everybody arrives at simplicity is through abject failures.
Hmm.
Because the more we succeed, the more complex things get because we can take shortcuts that make things very complex. When you have failed so many times, you get back to the very basic fundamentals of, block and tackle. Let's get back to block and tackle.
Yeah.
Let's not worry about winning the Super Bowl. And who cares about the Super Bowl? Why don't we just, what is the basic, simple activity that creates movement
Mm-hmm.
in all areas of life? So when you fail, you have to get back to the basics. Or you have an emotional breakdown and never get back to the basics. I think I lucked into the lack of emotional intelligence, so I didn't have to rely on that. And so I had failed so many times that I found very basic, simple things that work 100% of the time. And then it's just a matter of discipline. You got to
Yeah.
just do basic stuff and never branch out and do advanced things. And in the SEAL teams, there's only basics. There's no advanced anything. There's just basic, 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 basic. And it takes you 2 years to learn the basics. And then you go on deployment and just do the basics in combat. Anything outside the line of basic gets people killed 100% of the time. If you have an idea that you've never trained and you go try to execute on it, you will get somebody killed. So you only do what you've been trained to do. And it's a beautiful environment. Most people don't understand that.
It doesn't, and maybe that's just because a lot of I'm making a maybe too gross of an assumption here. Most people have never challenged themselves to what they actually as a human can do. It's like maybe we just set the bar too high in any area. And in that same line of thinking, once we do have success, I feel like having a win creates more opportunity. And because of that more greater opportunity, the world becomes more complex. Like we're creating complexity by achieving.
Yeah, you said something, and then success upon success doesn't build more success. It makes it too complex because what I know to be true is masters in every craft, a master guy, a detective, somebody who's been doing it for 30 years or 40, they forget what we now are trying to learn. So the masters in all crafts and all arts and all skills all have the same mindset, is have a goal that you can never attain. Have it so big and gross that there's just activity to do to get there. The small goals are for when you're emotionally distraught. So don't have a win just to keep going. Because what is really required is you have to have a support network just to do basic. Like get a team around you that just says, hey, bro, don't have these cool, outlandish ideas. Get back to basics. And look at Elon Musk as much as, well, you either like him or dislike him. Right. His goal will not be attained in his lifetime. He ain't going to Mars. Nothing that he is doing right now will touch Mars while he's alive. But there's just discipline. Okay, Monday through Friday, or he has an 8-day week. So every day of his life, he's trying to incrementally get the discipline required to get the next thing done. and they vertically landed a rocket. That's impossible. And they did it. It's impossible. NASA's been working on it since they shot a rocket into space.
Mm-hmm.
And he came along and said, we're going to Mars. And one of the phases that we have to do is vertically land a rocket. And everybody said no. And he fired everybody that said no and got everybody that wanted to be a part of it that didn't say no, like, I'll figure this out,
Mm-hmm.
and lock him into a cage, and you ain't coming out. You ain't going to get anything to eat until you figure it out.
Yeah.
And so his mind is very disciplined and simple. And most people that are successful are disciplined, simple, boring. Disciplined, simple, boring. Like, it's boring to be successful because all you have to do is eat right. You want to be healthy? Eat right. Well, that's boring.
Yeah.
Well, how about the workout of the week? That's exciting. That's complex. So it's a weird way of looking at it, but nobody is then teaching you. The adults aren't teaching that to kids. The teachers are not teaching that to kids. The discipline of 1,000, you have to do it 1,000 times to make a decision. Then you have to do it 10,000 times to be good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not taught anymore. That's a rule of thumb. Like, you have to shoot 10,000 rounds to be an expert at it. Well, that's a lot of money. I might as well not even start shooting. So that's how the brain goes.
Yeah. Yeah. All the challenges that are set before you.
Yep.
I'll never forget when I was going through the academy, one of the first physical barriers, like all the just general push-ups and getting yelled at and doing everything. Okay, you manage through that. Sometimes it feels great, sometimes it doesn't. But I'll never forget when a bunch of us got in trouble and we had to, we were told to do 500 burpees one evening.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget where my mind went. It stands out to this day as a major hurdle. I was like, let's do what we can. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, we're not going to do that. Like, 100 burpees sucks. Like, and it was amazing, like, coming together with some guys, and it's like, let's go, start knocking them out. Here we go. How could we get out of this? What could we tell them? Or they're just going to stop us when we start. It's just a game. And it was like, no, that's what we had to do. And it took a long time. It was fatigue. But at the end, it was just like, okay, I did it. I maybe had to stop for more breaks than I thought, or there was a way to get it done, I guess is my point. And as soon as you started to see that by executing on it, that's where the satisfaction came. And I can't say at the end I was like, oh, I'm glad we had to do that. That wasn't necessarily
I doubt if you said that.
Right. That wasn't my thought. I'd love to sit here and like, hurrah, motivation. That wasn't it. I was like, that was stupid. Why'd I have to do this? And I'm sore now and I have to get up and do something else again. But it was accomplished. You move through it. What it taught me, maybe I could sit and try and flesh that out. It's probably not as important as just, okay, I did something that I didn't really think I could get done, and I just did it. And
yeah, it's in the teams. It's a like a point of instruction called handling the impossible. So they always they make you understand that everything you're going to get in the teams is going to feel like it's impossible. So they do that from the first day of training. And you said the 500 thing. So first day of training is 500 push-ups, 500 sit-ups, 500 pull-ups, 500 squats, 500 something like there's 18 exercises that you have to do 500 of. And you're like, what? So people quit. They're like, I can't do 500. And all you learn is like, I don't know if I can do 500, but I'm not going to decide right now. I'm just going to keep the discipline up to do them. And you can't. Like, most people can't do it. Like, your body breaks down. We ain't going home till we get 500 of everything. But oddly, there's instructors that do it. You're like, oh my gosh, he's done 500. I saw a guy do 500 perfect sit-ups unbroken. Perfect rhythm, unbroken. I don't think he was beating sweat. I saw an instructor do 500 push-ups unbroken. I'd never have seen anybody do 500 pull-ups unbroken, but I've seen somebody do 100 and 200 unbroken. That's impossible. The brain can't conceive it, but what you get taught to do on a day-to-day basis is don't interpret anything. Just go back to the basics. Mm-hmm. It's 100 miles. Can you run Can you run 1 mile? Yeah, I can run 1 mile. So who cares how far we're running?
Mm-hmm.
We got 10 miles, 100 miles, 50 miles, whatever. It doesn't matter. Can you run 1 mile? Okay, then run 1 mile. I can run two. Okay, if you can choke that thing by doing 2 miles, do two. I can only do 100 yards. Good, do 100 yards.
Yeah.
How long can you hold your breath underwater? I don't know. Figure it out. Okay, I passed out at 2 minutes. Good. Let's learn to do it differently now. And you got to do it for three minutes and 42 seconds in SEAL training. If you can't hold your breath for 3 minutes 42, you're not going to make it.
Wow.
So it's impossible. I'm going to die.
Right,
Like right now, I try to hold my breath for a minute. I'm like, I'm going to die.
Sucking wind. Yeah. No,
But the impossible is a beautiful thing to teach everybody.
I like that. Yeah.
Like your kids, teach them impossible things.
Mm-hmm.
Add safety to it, but teach them possible.
Right. And I guess the pushback we get even from society in the larger scale is just, if you're teaching the impossible, what if they never attain that? And we have to set people up for success. Like there's so much of that where it's like we're trying to train people to experience wins rather than just moving through the difficult time. And that leads me to think about, as I was listening to Three Simple Things, one of I don't know why this word stood out, but what jumped out to me in formulating a thought was resistance. Like every day we are experiencing resistance from the world, from our relationships, from our job. Like that is the word that overarchingly just kept popping in my head. Man, he's talking about resistance. There needs to be a sense of urgency to pursue resistance. And that goes into the interrupted, like welcome these difficult interrupting things in our lives every day and attack them. And that resistance is, how do I get myself to a place where I can say, yeah, bring it on. I like the resistance, because as soon as I don't push back against it is when all of a sudden the failure comes in, the quit comes in, however we want to label it.
I don't know where the sales pitch started that you have to win to be successful. Like the perception of that is rather asinine. And why I say that is, so Usain Bolt's one of the fastest 100-meter runners in history, if not the fastest. Does anybody know the number 2 runner who was only a millisecond behind? A millisecond. Maybe the distance of a wing's, the width of a wing's, span. Is he less? No. Think about that. So the perception of being number 1 and winning and all that stuff is what you are trying to teach young people when you don't understand life is a long play. It's not a short journey. Mm-hmm. So once you get out of high school, there's no wins anymore. There's no wins anymore. You got a grade, that was a win. Even if you got a C, you're like, oh my God, I got a C. Woo! Or I got an A, how cool. You get out of high school, if you don't go to college, or if you get out of college and there's no predetermined winning metric in front of you, you're just left with, I got shit to do now. Yeah. Somehow I have good days, I have bad days, I have kids to raise. I don't see the tunnel's long. I can't see the light through the forest. So then you get down, if you have good mentors, the mentor is going to say, it's a long journey. We're just going to get a process to live moving forward, that you're not going to screw up. Just do the process, because you're all of a sudden going to be 85. You look back and you're like, I don't know if the wins were that important, but I really liked some of the bad times. The bad times were awesome. The wins, I can't remember. Like I can't remember any successful mission that I was on, but I remember the ones that went bad. The ones that we succeeded at, I'm like, oh, cool. The debrief was like 2 minutes long. Everybody did things perfectly. Nobody learned anything. All right, next mission. And football plays, I remember scoring 4 touchdowns one game. I can't remember anything about the game, but the game that we were down by 50, I remembered how my feet felt because it sucked to be out there. I remember we blew every play, what my part of that was. So It's a tragic thing that we teach kids that you have to have a positional win ahead of you. Like a grade is going to measure you against something else and it's going to be cool. As opposed to process, 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 process. I would assume detective thing is process driven. If you don't
Absolutely.
do the process, it may fall out of the sky, but I doubt it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Not too often. No, you can often point back to, markers of difficulty where you kind of hit something, and whether it was a good question or whether you got a break somewhere,
Yep.
the investigative process is what ultimately led you
Yep.
to. I'm not even. I can't think of a time where it's just like, oh, we got lucky. No, it was because somebody was out grinding, trying to
Yep.
identify possible evidence. Like it's that constant grind of you can always point it back to a human endeavor that caused something to come about, whether that's investigation or even a challenging time thinking about relationships, thinking about relationship with my wife. It's like, man, this is a really good season. Well, why is it a really good season? And I'm so glad that happened to us and we had that experience. But a lot of it is because of how we're working on our relationship or the
Mm-hmm.
decisions we're trying to make together. Um, and
That's what I go back to this. Boy, if you can, uh, like take a knee for a second. I hate the now that has a bad connotation. Take a
yeah, yeah,
break
no,
for a second.
yeah, I got you.
And what are the simple things? What's the process that I need to move forward? Or how can I make this more simple? And that's what I had done really well in life and in writing the book, Three Simple Things, was make it simple and then watch how great it is.
Hmm.
Simple, simple, simple. What did I miss was the simple one? You forgot to drink. Ooh, you can't run faster now. Since you forgot the simple, you can't hack things. Like the simple things in relationship is listening. You can't speak first. You have to listen first. She
Yeah.
doesn't say anything. Doesn't matter. Don't say anything. Let him speak first. And then don't share bullshit anymore. Share poignant stuff. What you're doing, how that was for you. No drama. And in every relationship that counts, there has to be intimacy. So I didn't do those three simple things. Buying a vacation to Cabo ain't going to solve it. You know what I mean?
Oh, I can fix this.
Hey, let's get a new car, honey. If you would have just listened to me, you wouldn't have to spend that $70,000 on that car. You know,
Yeah, no,
the
that's
simple is a beautiful thing, but man, it's not easy to do simple.
so how do we how do we identify that we've made it too complex? Like, what are the markers of stopping ourselves? How do we know when we're making it simple enough or we're making it too complex? Is it an emotional response? Is it just I failed at my goal? Or like, how would you identify even for a
How do you
client
know?
that,
God, man, I've never heard anybody ask that. How do you know on a moment to moment basis if you've made it too complex or you're still following the simple?
yeah, that's like, I need to pivot. What I need to change what I'm doing. What is it?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
tangible
I would
piece.
say the metric of that question or the analytical point of that question, maybe not analysis, but the checkoff sheet.
Mm.
Did I do that? Did I do that? And did I do that? Okay. Then this is just sucky. This is just a period of time. This sucks. Or wow, we outperformed ourselves. Okay, hold on. We didn't anticipate we'd be 500 miles ahead right now. So, ooh, let's go back to simple really quickly. Did we do the simple? No, but we were doing so good that we forgot to stop and rest. Okay, now we have to go back to simple. So, in every part of every leadership position I had, it was always going back to did we do the simple stuff first? Have we foregone the simple and made it complex? The moment I feel there's complexity, I don't know if it's experience. I like the hair on the back of my neck gets weird.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, this may look good, but it's about ready to fall apart because I know that nobody did anything simple to get here. This is all hacks and confrontations We somehow got on the right bus, not by thought or all of a sudden we're at the right spot, but we're not prepared. I would actually walk away from it and go, hey, we're not prepared to sustain this. Even though everything's perfect right now, the simple wasn't good. Like I don't take things that aren't earned anymore because I can't have them.
Hmm.
Like, hey, I'd love you to take my car, dude. I can't afford it. You can give me the car. I can't afford the taxes on it.
Yeah, yeah,
And so the simple stuff becomes it's a battle and a game to have. And that's the sole purpose of a team is they support simple and they check you. Hey, do you have your things on you you're supposed to have?
yeah.
Like, do you have like you're a policeman? Do you have your weapon? Oh shit, I forgot it. Tell me you haven't done that.
I'm not
Oh,
going to
it's
sit
in the
here.
car. Don't go in the house. You know? Oh, I can see him right there. Doesn't matter. Don't do anything. Go back, do simple stuff.
Yeah,
And the team dynamic in the SEALs is always check oriented. So they check the simple and they keep verifying that the simple is there. Do you still have it? Yeah, it's an hour. You could have dropped it. We stopped. I just checked the simple.
recheck. Yeah,
And that is a paramount way to live.
yeah,
And it makes a big difference at home too. Always bigger difference at home.
yeah. As a leader, Tom, in the teams, did even I think maybe just thinking towards younger guys or newer people in the organization, when you were leading and a mature leader there, did you get pushback from the younger guys on trying to boil that down, or is that just such ingrained in SEALs that's like, no, that's just expected from my leader? Do you find your focus on the simple like that and really articulating it to your men, even preparing for a mission, that they embrace that, or is like, come on, I know that, let's get to the challenge part here?
Yeah. Then actually the new guys are really good at it. It's the medium, the people that have been there for 10 years
A
that,
little salty.
man, do we have to do this again? Yeah, this is all we do. It's boring. So the new guys are not, they don't challenge. The problem is when you're a new guy, if you challenge, you better, you better be a stud. So if you challenge somebody, they'll take it. You better be better than them. So every
Huh.
challenge as a new person, so I'll say it differently. So when you're a new guy on a SEAL team, here's what you're told: shut up and get in the back. Just get in the back. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Well, I earned a trident. Nobody cares. Everybody else has the same thing. You're 20 years back. So just get in the back. Don't do anything dangerous. Slow down. Just do what we tell you to do and nothing else. And so you go through that experience. Now you're at the 5-year mark or the 10-year mark. You're like, hey, well, let's go to advanced something, something. And the old guys like me were like, bro, there ain't nothing advanced. This is a boring line of work. You got to load the gun and shoot it well. Let's go shoot paper on the range. Well, let's run and shoot. Nobody runs and shoots. Come on. That's competition. In combat, if you're running and shooting, it's you've missed. So be static, get your position, take the rounds, calm down, make that one squeeze. Don't shoot a lot of rounds. Calm down, draw fire,
Hmm.
aim and shoot. There's no like this
Yeah.
advanced technique of plasma rifle thing, you know. And so the guys in the middle are the fight. Like, hey, let's cut corners. Do we have to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning?
Hmm.
Do we have to do 15 of these? Yeah, we're going to do 15 because I know you know it. The new guys don't know it, so we have to do it for them. Or I have my feet hurt. I don't give a shit about your feet. So the fight is really with the mid-level leaders in the teams, or the fight is with your boss who wants to get done early.
Hmm.
Like, bro, you're here for 2 years. This is our life. You're gonna do what we ask you to do and get in the
Yeah.
back. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the weirdest thing at the SEAL teams is officers don't run the community. The senior enlisted guys run it.
Yeah.
And you
Man.
go to Annapolis or you go to West Point, you go to the SEAL teams, and you're like, hey, get in the back, man. Nobody cares about your point of view.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing for them to see.
Is there? How do we prove ourselves in a culture like that? Is it just because we just do what's expected, or how do you stand out if that is?
You don't let yourself ever stand out because somebody
Hmm,
will knock you down. Like, hey, wow, you really look good doing that. Did you help John? You were here 4 hours ago. Cool. Did you ever circle back and help the guys in the back? So the standout gets humiliated. Like if you are the number one shooter, then nobody cares.
yeah.
So why aren't you helping John? And so it's you wouldn't think that by observing. So if you break out and you're doing really well, you circle back and help everybody else out
Hmm,
because someday you're going to need it. Somebody's going to be really good and you're going to have a bad day. You'll want them to circle back without being told. And but that's just inherent from day one. That's not even, it's taught, but it's not don't break out. Do the best you can because you can tell when people aren't. But
mhm.
once you break out and you're doing really well, turn around and help everybody that's not doing well. That's why the teams are so good is not that there's so many standouts. There's no thoroughbreds in the teams. They're all bottom feeders that really do simple things very quickly. Like they can shoot really quickly because 200,000 rounds a year per shooter.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine if
Yeah.
you guys shot that much?
No, we should be. That's a whole nother
You would
conversation.
draw and
But
fire
yeah,
too often and everybody'd be in jail.
no,
All the
but
cops
there's
would be in jail.
the reputation or the repetition, how that increases one's confidence, not in a cocky way, just
Hmm.
your ability to know that you're capable to execute when it matters. And
Yeah,
that is
it's
my
not confidence, it's knowledge. Like
okay.
I never thought that when I was at my top shooting, the bullet went exactly where I wanted it to go every time. And I don't remember getting my body to shoot. Like I don't remember the gun coming up. I just remember going, oh, there's a bad guy, center chest, boom, boom, 2 rounds would hit him. I'm like, gosh, I don't remember firing. But when you're shooting so much, the brain tells the body what to do and it does it so quickly. Uh, like I wish everybody in the world would have that experience once in their life to have done something so many times that it just happens. And that's what they want you to be at that level when you go on a deployment is that there's no thought. There's just a, somebody shoots at you and there's a million basic things that happen very quickly. And it's a great, like I'm literally saying it's the greatest environment in the world to show where the human potential is in the SEAL teams in combat.
Mm, yeah, no, I mean, knowledge diminishes fear all the time in every aspect.
100%.
I don't just mean, fear for a dangerous situation, fear of success or failure. Fear, it's like prepare more. I mean, there's so much weight that has to be placed on training, and that is the hard grind every day, and that takes such an incredible amount of initiative, and that's what I'm hearing out of even what you're
Yeah, the
sharing.
process. Like you said, the process. And what word were you saying that you heard in the reading of the three simple things?
And resistance, the
Resistance.
constant
So with
resistance.
that pressure and resistance caused me to make two choices. Recognize that it's always going to be there or pull away from it.
Hmm.
If I pull away from it, I forget the process. The process is pushing forward and then push forward. Every day that ends in Y, there's pressure. There's resistance to you being the best version of yourself. Always.
Mhm.
It ain't never going to go away. So I want to run 100 miles. There's just resistance to that. Wife doesn't want me to go. Kids don't want me to go. Culture doesn't want me to go. Body definitely doesn't want you to go 100 miles.
Yeah.
And if you've done your
Well,
first 100, you're really scared the second. You're like, oh my God, it's going to hurt. Like I know I'm going to think of dying the whole time. And so that resistance, what I found was fundamental. I thought it only happened in combat. It happens to leaders in business.
hmm.
They pull away from the resistance, one, because they don't have a team supporting them. And the other ones, they think that it can go away. If I make more money, there's going to be less resistance. If once I make a million, there's less resistance. No, there's a million more resistors. It's always there. If it's true that it's always there, all you get to do is follow the process.
Yeah.
If you
Well,
just do that, like you said something, I said to my son, I said, nobody has ever said I'm over prepared, ever, never.
nope.
Nobody goes to an event and goes, dude, I'm way over prepared for this. Nope, never has happened.
Yeah. I'm glad I did this or took this path. Well, and the resistance thing too, and I've experienced this a lot this year, I think, is when we start to pull away, we're not actually removing ourselves from the resistance. Because say it's a race or a physical achievement or something, it's like I can't do that. I'm going to remove myself from it. Then all of a sudden you have the mental game of, well, now I quit. Now I remove myself. What else do I have to do? Because you didn't achieve what you set out to do. I don't think you can just separate yourself and disappear from the challenge or the goal. It stays with you. But if you push back against it, there's so much to gain there.
Yeah, so that's the other quote. Nobody ever said that I over prepared, and nobody ever said quitting solved it. Nobody has quit has ever looked back and go, man, that was a great choice.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it differently, like if this doesn't work, like you're trying to solve a problem, asking the same question over and over again, don't ask the same question. Don't quit. Ask it differently.
Yeah.
Have your girlfriend ask it. Have your wife ask it. Have the bystander, whatever. So quitting like 10x is the resistance. If you quit, you don't have to face that problem, but now you carry that problem with you into the next problem.
And starts to make it complex.
Yeah, there was a guy in SEAL training when I went through one of my classes that I didn't quit on. Uh, he had quit 18 years prior. And he said, every day I thought I was a quitter. So he came back to SEAL training. Instead of at 18, he came back at what, 20, well, 30 something, whatever that would be. And he goes, man, I thought about it every day. And he was a phenomenal athlete. He was the number one guy in the class. But he goes, quitting has destroyed me as a human being. And so the only way I could figure out, I was either suicide or come back to go through SEAL training. And as a young kid, I'm like, man, what a weird thing. Now as an old adult, I get it. Like quitting is very, if you can use the word resistance, it's a brutal life. If you've quit something that you don't learn from it, then go back and complete it.
Yeah.
Like if you have something that you quit on, find a way to complete it one way or the other.
Man, that's so instructive right there. Those couple words, complete it. I mean, get it done, and evaluate maybe what is sitting there. And I think that's where you got to really rely on your team, whether it's a business team, an agency team, your family unit as a team. It's like, what are the areas that you've quit on, and what are the conversations that need to be had, and starting to have that dialogue and ask those bigger questions.
Yep.
And one of I'd love if you could take a moment to another piece that stood out in Three Simple Things, and I actually talked to our Interrupted Man group about this week because it was sitting with me, is the conversation about accomplishment of 3 goals with your spouse and asking them what their goals are, and how, I don't remember exactly how you said it, but it's hands off. You can't commit to or any energy to pulling them away from those 3 goals. And you said it way more articulate and better than I did, but it just, man, that sat with me. It's like, when have I ever asked my wife what her goal is? Because I'm goal driven. I talk about my goals all the time, but I can't think of a time I actually asked her, hey, in the next 30 days, what do you want to accomplish? Like, maybe I have in ways, but not that simple.
So 8 years ago in retirement, I never thought that I would be in relationship conversations with people. So in helping leaders build teams and scale their businesses and follow this process that I'd created, the one thing that was draining them the most was their relationships at home.
Mm.
And I'm like, man, it's simple. Why can't you do these three simple things at home? So here's if you, the impact of a leader or a man having these three simple things answered at home, or do these three simple things to figure out your spouse. If you can't do them, call me and I'll figure out your spouse in about 10 minutes, and I'll know something about her that you had no idea about. I don't care how long you've been married. So the process, if you want to call it that,
Mm.
is you have to listen to your spouse, and they have to share what they're committed to accomplishing in their physical body, like their workout. It could be, hey, Tom, I'm going to work out. I want to do CrossFit today. Okay. Or, hey, I want to run a marathon in 2 months. Okay. I've heard their commitment to their health. What are they interested in learning? Hey, I'm interested in learning how to do a podcast. Oh my God, I found out what my wife is interested in learning. What's their business? What is the business that your wife is in? If she's a mother, she's in a business.
Mm.
If she works at a business, find out what her metric of that business is. What's the goal that she's trying to articulate in her business? Now that seemed freaking simple. So to date, I've had over 1,000 people try this. To date, 15 knew it up front. What are your wives or your spouse's three goals? What's her health goal, his health goal? What's your spouse's intellectual goal? And what's your spouse's wealth goal? If you can't write them down and articulate it, you've diminished your capacity as a man by a factor of 7. What does that mean? That's a little complicated, but you have diminished yourself by a factor of 7. Oh, I want that 7 back. So here's how you get it back. What we said earlier is get in front of your spouse and say, hey, we're going to have a committed conversation. And part of that conversation is, I want to hear what your commitments are in your life. And then keep your mouth shut. I say it grossly because everybody remembers gross, obnoxious things. If your wife wants to be a stripper, you have to say yes. If she wants to be bad, she wants to do bad things, you have to hear it, non-judgmental, and commit to it. Because if that's who she is and that's how she expresses herself, if you can't hear it, fine, but that's who she is. So you got to be able to commit 100% to whatever your spouse is committed to, without changing it, redirecting it, making sense of it. Yes, I'm in. There's not a lot of people that have that level of commitment to their spouse. Therefore, they can't listen and create a deep relationship with their spouse. I can easily hear what your spouse wants to say because I don't judge. Once they get the experience of saying something without being judged, their life changes and so does yours. Like once I get to hear Stacy tell me what she's committed to, our existence that day changes. And it could be anything, but I have to hear those three things: what their physical goal is, their wealth goal, and their intellectual goal. That makes me connected to her. Now I have a relationship with her. And then she gets to hear mine, and she can't change or adapt them. And then you have to have some intimacy: kiss, grab butt, brush by her, say something acknowledging, say something nice. That's all intimacy.
Yeah.
Well, come to find out, I've not met many couples that have that on a day-to-day basis. And it makes things very difficult over time to be in a relationship with somebody you're not 100% committed to.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I was going to be in a relationship business.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how when you're listening, if you have even gotten to the part of you asking those questions, a lot of times you speak because you quickly hear how their goals are going to interrupt yours.
Yep.
And you're not going to achieve them.
Yep.
And man, to set yourself aside, and because that's where my mind goes. It's like I'm thinking about what I want to achieve. Whether even think about a work relationship, I'm thinking like, hey, this is what my boss wants to achieve. I already have where I want to accomplish what I need to get done. Maybe it's for a case or just a career goal. And it's like, man, how is that all of a sudden messing up what I want to do? And I shut down. I didn't hear anything they said
Yep.
from that point on, because now it's creating a problem for me that I need to
It, like
overcome.
literally take out the ear pro and listen to your wife. Most of the time, it'll feel like it's the first time or the first date. Like, what are you really interested in? What if we didn't have to do this shit anymore? What if we didn't live in this, we didn't have to do it this way? What would you like to do? And they'd be like, since you asked, here's what I really want. Well, why aren't we doing that?
Yeah.
Because I can't figure how to fit it in into your life. You'd be like, I didn't know that. I wish I would have known that. It's easy to fit that in,
Yeah.
but I didn't know because we men beat that down in women. It's our fault, not theirs.
Well, I try and make all my energy and what I would say all our energy into achieving my goals.
Hmm.
And it's easy to talk about what we want to accomplish and drive that ship. And
Well, what
it's,
if she was behind you?
yeah, yeah,
What if you were behind her?
that's the
And it doesn't
question.
take 100% of your energy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like if I put 100% of my energy into my day, uh, but I forget that seven factor over there of having a great relationship of support, a 7x support and do that percentile. Ooh. So it makes you more efficient to have a team supporting you do something. Because one person in isolation can't do something. It lasts forever. It takes forever to do something. What would it take? How long would it take to accomplish something if everybody was on the same sheet and supportive? Ooh, it wouldn't take that long.
Yeah.
Well, then why the hell aren't we doing that?
Hmm.
The teams are designed around that. So everybody gets a seat at the table and everybody has a very concerted opinion, or not concerted, very great opinion about what's going to happen. You get a say, he gets a say, he gets a say, he gets a say. Their freaking ideas were always better than mine. I'm like, why was I worried about me coming up with the way to do it? It's his life, and he's not wanting to die, and he says we should do it that way. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Let's do it that way.
That can't possibly achieve the outcome I want if we do it your way. And it's like,
Yeah, I think you get with the older you get, you're like, man, my ideas suck. You know, how about you? What do you think? You know, and my point, man, uh, I'd have
yeah.
an idea how I was going to get there. And he'd be like, that's the dumbest thing in the world. I said, where would you like to take us? He goes, if we do it your way, it's going to suck doing it your way. Let me do it. And he would always get us there. We'd always get there on time and more fresh than I was a good athlete. I'm like, just walk straight there. He goes, no, man, going up and down cliffs suck. Let's just go around. It's another 2 miles. Who cares? But if we walk up that cliff and down the other side, it's just going to suck getting there. I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah, man. Oh man, Tom, all this is good. I want to respect our time here. We're going exactly how I hope we could just start talking about some good stuff, and I know there's a lot of value. I have a lot more thoughts going through my head in terms of even how we ask good questions to draw out our spouses and our partners, and how some of those experiences have evolved in your own leadership and being able to speak to them. What what brought you to a place where after you retired and got out of the teams, what brought you to a place that, hey, I can take this and I want to refine it into something I can share and articulate? Is it just, hey, you sat down and sketched it out one night and these books started to come out and your leadership, your coaching and teaching came out? How did that evolve for you as a leader and businessman, and just wanting to give back to people too and teach them about simplicity?
The answer is nothing. Nothing is simple. uh, mm, I'm really interested in the human phenomenon and what makes people tick and what makes, like the potential that is very hard for most people to articulate or live into,
Hmm.
or what's possible for humans. The people that are really pushing the envelope are usually leaders of a business. and they're the ones that are asking for help, and they're like a leader fails all the time. That part of the business is screwed up. Oh my God, I have to go over there. Their ideas don't last very long, but they can recapture an idea. So the greatest impact that I knew that was going on in the world outside the teams was at the leadership level. It's tragic that it's that way, but that's leaders are pushing the envelope. So what I knew to be true is that you have to help and support leaders, because when a leader has a great life, the company has a great life. So the first book called Unbreakable, which was a story that about me not dying in combat, that I wrote to my kids in case I didn't come home. Here's 13 lessons. So that got me in front of a lot of leadership teams where they wanted me to teach them the details. So in the process of teaching details, I had to make sure that, hey, are these simple things going on in your life? Well, hey, I want to buy and sell businesses. Cool. That may be possible, but we have to go back to, how do we make your life simple first? I don't need a simple life. I want to buy and sell businesses. I'm like, well, I'm not going to work with you then, because you can hire Boston Consulting Group to come in and help you scale your business, and you won't take their advice, and you'll spend $200,000 and it won't help. That's the paradigm of hiring a consultant, is they're going to give you a solution. Since your life sucks, you're not going to impart the solution. I said, so I'm really interested in having your life work. And I had to break everything then down to very simple metrics that they could do and see the impact, and which then bore the book, Three Simple Things. Yeah. And I wasn't going to write the Three Simple Things book, but we're sitting around a table, a bunch of Navy SEALs, and guys a bunch of my friends were committing suicide, and I wasn't paying attention because I was busy. And the question at the table is, what would happen if you died right now? And I'm like, man, I've just developed this beautiful technique to train leaders and teams, and it's all sitting in my head. And when my buddies are like, well, you got to put it down on paper. I'm like, oh God, I hate writing. So that's what made it complex. So it was my commitment that the human dynamic is actually learnable. And I think success is learnable, because failure is definitely learnable. Yeah. And I just created a curriculum where it takes people 90 days to 2x their life by getting back to simple.
That equation of evaluating your life and trying to create simplicity, I don't know if this is completely turning it around, but are there key questions that we need to ask of maybe people that we want to follow, in terms of how do we analyze or evaluate how complex their life is and their model or whatever they're doing, in terms of choosing people to follow and sit under, or evaluating, a good boss or a bad boss, or a good company to work for, or if I'm not married, a good relationship to be in, is looking in one area of life at how simplistic they make their life a good marker or a good way to pursue answering those questions?
Man, I don't know if there's an easy answer to that. I'm not a big proponent of relying on my innocent evaluation or my amateur evaluation of somebody or a company to then make a life decision. Do I want to work for company A because of my amateur evaluation of the boss? I don't know. If you think you know the boss by doing an analytical approach on the internet, you're going to make poor decisions. I think the greatest metric of how you look at people is, do they do what they say they're going to do? Until that metric is met, hey, he said he'd call me back. Cool. He didn't call me back. I'm no longer interested. He's a multimillionaire. I don't care, because it's going to complicate everything, because he didn't do the simple stuff. And another great metric is if you ever get a chance to go out and uh, do something difficult with somebody before you make a decision, like go out and walk 5 miles with somebody. Just walk.
Hmm.
See if they're a complainer. From a distance, man, they're a great athlete. 5 minutes into the walk, their feet hurt. Their wife was cheating on them. Like, dude, I don't want to spend 5 years with this guy. So, do they do what they say they're going to do? And what do they do during pressure?
Yeah.
Like, if you got to get those things, but look at where can you find that information? Because with that information, you can make sound decisions. Find that information anywhere. You'll never find it.
Yeah.
But that's what you got to do. So whether you're a leader or you're analyzing up, you're trying to figure out what's my next step, observe for a while.
Yeah.
And
being able to keep your mouth
do
shut.
hard
like
things with people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No,
like that 500 burpees. All right, we're going to do 500 burpees. We're going to see who's going to play on the team. Oh, he complained. He kept his mouth shut. He just did them, and he struggled, but he did them. I want those two guys. But the other guys are great athletes. They're going to kill us. They're going to kill us as a team because they didn't want to be here. They anticipated it was going to be better. It never is going to be better. They complained the whole time. They're out. So it's a funny way to analyze things. I'm a big fan that honor your word and never give up, like the foundation of life. Say what you're going to do and then go do that and never give up on it until it happens. And then what you do during stress, because your job is stress. It's not stressful in school. It's stressful in life. You're like, man, do you want to get up at 2:00 in the morning and go to an arson and smell dead flesh? God dang it. Miss a birthday? That's stress. Mm-hmm. But the person that keeps their composure up during those times, man, they're fun to be around and they're easy to support. And they know, they're going to be there when, hey, man, I can't be there. Oh, something is real for that person. You know what I'm saying? Not that you asked that question, but those are my metrics.
No,
you do what you say you're going to do, and what do you do when things get bad?
Yeah, no, you can really at least start to make some evaluations and ask bigger questions, and that's kind of what I try and continue to refine is just ask bigger questions. In my profession, and I always try and refine asking the best possible question that's going to give me the most information, be able to determine whether there's deception or truthfulness coming back at me. And look, at the end of the day, we then just have to make some decisions and then live with our decisions. And I think some people just have trouble living with the bad decision they made rather than being able to kind of regroup and say, hey, there's going to be another decision to make. And
it's a funny thing, as you brought that up, we do battlefield interrogation, and we go through a course and then 6 combat tours, learn something interesting. Maybe this will be useful to you. Under stress, people are deceptive. They're never truthful.
Make it end. Make the stress end.
During stress, you'll always get a deception.
Yeah.
We never found how to get truth, but we found how to get deception.
No,
Stress him out. He'll never tell you the truth, but he'll then start stressing. He'll be very deceptive.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're a good interrogator, you can use the deception to find truth, but and waterboarding never gets truth. It gets deception, but it lets you rule out a bunch of things. When you put people under stress, you can see you ask them something that you know is true, and they answer it truthfully. You ask them something else, they start deceiving. Okay, there's something there,
Baselines begin to be set. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, Thom, man, this has been just really good, man. I have a lot of things to mull over myself, which is one of the things I love about this time and where we started with, me having bigger thoughts because of good questions and challenging what we know to be true, and your book has done that, man. I commend you, whatever that means, coming from a guy like me. I'm a fan of the book, and I want to keep diving into it and incorporating in my life, because there's so much complexity, and that's what I struggle with as I've been going through your book, is how do I evaluate what's too complex? And so those are kind of the question I'm mulling over and wrestling with right now as I'm thinking about how you're articulating these solutions to this thing called life. So I hope we get to talk again, man.
Absolutely.
This has been so good. How does the audience connect with you and what you're doing with your podcast and with the book, and just interact with, even if it's, hey, I want to reach out and bring somebody like you in to help us kind of mine through the complexity?
There we have 3 partners, and we have an internet site called unbreakableleadership.com. Everything funnels through there. Our podcast is there, called Unbreakable, and our business model, if you want to call it a model, is there for people to look at digitally. And we're very responsive. So unbreakableleadership.com, and then Unbreakable on the internet, on Facebook, and or Thom Shea, ThomShea, however you search that, it'll always drive towards unbreakable leadership.
Right on, man. And what topics do you tackle on the podcast? What's the goal of the podcast in terms of the information that you're able to get out there?
I'm always looking at those 5 areas: health, learning, wealth, relationship, and spiritual. So I'm always interested in having people on that have a unique, learnable, and doable solution to one of those topics.
Right on.
And right now we're on the topic of deception and quitting, and it transcendent. It's funny, but we, like, 4 of the past podcasts have been about the effect of quitting on your life.
Man, all really good stuff that we have to think about and confront every day. And I appreciate you having those, tough conversations. And, I know everybody probably absorbs them in different ways. And while I don't know whether to apologize or know that we need to schedule another podcast. I'm sorry we didn't get into more of some of your actual experiences on the teams and things. I feel like we tackled some really good things today. But thank you for well, and that stood out to me. And probably a whole nother topic is just that those are things you've done, and they've caused you to be somebody that, even in the short time that I've known you, from the first conversation that I saw pop up on my phone to even now, those experiences you've had. I mean, the questions you must have asked going through being a kid, being through training, and then leading men into combat, and now leading people, and your transition in life. Man, there's so much information that I just want to extract, and I'm so grateful that you wrote the book so we can begin to do that. So
Sure.
all that to say, I'm humbled by the time we got to spend together, and I thank you a lot.
Well, hey, I appreciate what you're doing too, and thanks for taking the time, and I appreciate you.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. So until the next time, we'll talk to you real soon, okay?
Right. Thank you.
Uh-huh.